Welcome to Commercial Photography Talk. We all know people that hate their jobs and can't wait to retire, and you might even be one of them. So, what if I told you about the greatest career in the world? What if I told you you could take your hobby and get companies to pay you big bucks for doing what you love? That's what I do. I'm a commercial photographer. The video you're about to watch is a conversation between two longtime professional commercial photographers, Alan Adams and myself, Michael Ray. I'm the handsome guy on the right. In this video, Al and I talk about what a great career commercial photography is and all the reasons we love it. The conversation starts out with us talking about our backgrounds, which you may or may not be interested in. If not, or if you're in a hurry, go ahead and scrub through the first few minutes. After that, we get down to the meat of the matter. So if you're considering a career in commercial photography, you'll definitely want to see this.
So you want to talk about what the upsides?
Yeah, I just love the career of commercial photography. I mean, I've been a commercial photographer all my life, and I've just always thought myself extremely blessed. I mean, to blunder into this career. And I thought it might be nice to, talk to other people or tell them what it's like if they're considering that for their own career.
Right.
I'm not so sure it's going to be the same now that it was when, I got into it and you got into it, but, I don't want to be the old man that talks about, what it was like when I was a kid and the snow is this deep and all that.
Sure. Yeah, uphill's both ways.
Yes.
So, the upside of commercial photography, you just spoke about enjoying it, and we probably don't want to get too deep into history of things, but, I think when people start out with the idea of photography, it's because they can compose an image or something there makes them gravitate to the camera. And I'm assuming that was that way for you.
I'm not really sure. I don't think it was. I mean, it's kind of, my memory's not very long, but I just remember being enthralled with cameras. Like I don't have very many like far off memories, but I remember being in front of Ken Camera in New Kensington.
I remember
looking at the cameras and F1 specifically, Canon F1. I just thought that was the most cool thing. I was wondering how those, like the dials worked and stuff like that. And, in second grade, I decided, or I didn't decide, but we had a career thing where you had to pick your, future careers, like possibles. And one of the ones I picked was photography. And it just came out to be true. And it's like, I'm so happy that I chose that. It just meshed really well with my personality, what few talents I have, it meshed well with. And it's been a great career. I loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you talked about Ken Cameron, not to get into history, but that was Leo Cavalier.
I have no idea.
I think his name was Leo Cavalier. I think that's who owned that place.
I was probably in fourth grade taking trumpet lessons when that's, it was before the lesson. I'm sitting there, waiting for my time to come on. And
Sure.
Right across the street was Ken Camera.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they closed down, I think, in the 90s. And I went in a few times, and of course he had a bunch of Eddie Adams things around because he was friends with him. But yeah. All right. So, I know some of your history, and I know you went to the Art Institute, and I don't know if you want to speak on that very much.
Well, my SATs sucked really bad. I graduated middle of my class in high school, and I'm no brainiac for sure. So I was looking for a career that I would have fun doing. That was my goal. I want to have fun. I want to make a living, but I want it to be enjoyable. I didn't want to be these people that like just hated to get up in the morning and go to work. And I thought, photography, that sounds cool. And that's kind of how it all started. And I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, like you did. It was a 2-year school. And as far as education goes, it was probably pretty bad.
Yeah.
But, you're rubbing elbows with a lot of people that have the same interests. And, one thing leads to another. You're thrown out into the world and you get a job finally. And it's, you make the best of what it was.
Sure.
And did you have the same experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was a little bit older when I went. I was 21 when I hit the Art Institute. And, there was a whole story with that. But like, I went when I was 21. So there was a lot of students that were younger than me. And what I found out immediately was like, I'm going to get out of this what I put into it. It's pretty much like anything. I mean,
That's
like,
right.
I wasn't the partier. I had a full-time job from 3 to 11, so, and I would stay late in the dark room, but, yeah, I mean, there wasn't very many that graduated, and out of everybody that I graduated with, and I think there was only 5, I was the only one that ended up being a working photographer.
Right. The attrition rate was just amazing. You'd start off with like 25 people, 30 people in your class, and by the time you graduate, like you said, it was 7 or 10 or whatever.
I remember, I think it was Fran Pianotti. He said, look around. By third quarter, half you will be gone.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that they had the same idea that I did. It's like, well, what can you do for a career that would be fun?
Sure.
Because, nothing else seemed to be like on their horizon.
Sure.
And those people that didn't have the skills that matched up, they're the ones that just, this isn't for me. And there was a lot of partiers. I mean, you had some, mentally challenged people that were just like looking for a thing to do. A lot of them had like GI Bill loan, they got money from the government to get educated, and they figured, we'll try this. And it just wasn't it. I mean, as a commercial photographer, there's a lot of things that you have to be, and, you have to be self-motivated. You have to have certain personality traits. Yeah. And if you don't have those, then, I think a lot of them are the same as school, really, because, if you're not willing to do the work, like you said, then.
So what, like you just talked about personality traits. So like what in you did you recognize that you thought I could be a good photographer? Now, I don't know if immediately you wanted to be a commercial photographer or not, but that's where you ended up.
Yeah. I was motivated by, I want to make a career doing something I like. I am not the artsy fartsy type of guy. Like I didn't have an eye for composition. I was able to create it, which I didn't think at the time was really possible. Mm-hmm. But I'm very happy with my eye for composition now. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but my traits that have really turned out to be valuable are, I am a self-motivator. If I get interested in something, I am obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm not a photographer, I'm not obsessed. Like I have a friend, Brenda, mm-hmm. and she takes her camera everywhere she goes. Yeah. Like I don't even take mine on vacation half the time.
I don't either.
And it's one of those things where I love what I do, but I separate like my fun time from, and it overlaps sometimes. Like I'm into this drone stuff now. So mm-hmm. that overlaps, I'm doing it for joy but mostly commercial photography is not, it's a certain kind of fun. It's challenging fun.
Well, and it's funny, you talked about like artsy fartsy, things like that. And I found that, people have said to me over the years, like, and I use it loosely, like you're such an artist or whatever. And I'm like, I'm a problem solver.
That's exactly what a commercial photographer is.
Right.
Now, if you can combine both things, if you can, like there are certain people in this world, and I always talk about this guy, Pittsburgh photographer, his name was, mm-hmm. okay? I think he's still around, but he was a little bit older than I was. So he's not going to be, I don't know if he's still active or not, but I remember this guy, and back in the day, there was this dark room. It was called the dark room. And that's where everybody went to get their film processed, right? So I was in there one day, and he was in there at the same time, and I had known him from something. But we pull our slides out and we lay them on the light table, and he's like, scratching his head. It's like, what the hell's going on? What did I do wrong? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I look over, and I'm a technical guy, right? Yeah. And I said, use the wrong film, like use daylight film in, tungsten light. Right. And it's like, he had no idea, but the guy had a phenomenal eye. Yeah. He had the best eye for composition. If you would just hand the guy a camera, send him to the point, and say, come back with pretty pictures, he's the guy to do. Right. He was amazing like that. But technically, not so much. I am a technical guy. I mean, that was my starting point.
Right. Let me ask you this though: did anybody like? I mean, were you technical when you got out of the Art Institute?
I think I was technical before I got out of the arts. I mean, it's like there's certain things like I was a like we talked about characteristics. Like I'm kind of a problem solver, and
Yeah.
that's one of the big keys.
Yeah.
You got to be a problem solver because that's what photography is. I mean, it's commercial photography. Okay, if you're a journalist, you capture what's there. Okay,
Right.
now, and if you're an artsy fartsy photographer, you go out and you capture what's there.
Sure.
Commercial photographer, they go out and make it.
That's
Like
right.
you have an assignment and you want to make your client happy, which is what most people don't understand. I mean, they're actually commercial photographers that don't make their clients happy. It's like this is what I want to do, and do you want it? I mean, that's their marketing approach.
Sure.
And some of them are so good that's fine. They do just real well. But I'm the kind of guy that talks to the client and says, "What do you want?"
And I know some of the clients you've worked with, and I know they wouldn't like it if I just said, this is what I want to do.
Right. And those are the kind of people that gravitate. They gravitate to the photographer that they like because they might try the other guy. Like there's, I don't want to bring up any names, but we'll just call the guy. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Harry is an excellent photographer,
Mhm.
but he has a reputation of being, okay. It's not like, what do you want this to look like? It's like, okay, this is the way he does it. Do you want him?
Mhm.
And that's valid,
Mhm.
and he probably's made a lot more money in this world than I have, in this
Sure.
industry,
Sure.
because those are the kind of people that are a little more elite.
Mhm.
They market what they do. I market what you want. And
Sure.
that's a different thing.
I kind of think I'm in that same boat. There was a couple people that I knew in the city. We'll say they were very good black and white portrait photographers, and they got hired for that. That was their niche in the market, and they love doing it. I think they totally championed that. I'm known for this, and I admired them. I did. Like I thought there's two to come to mind that were actually three that were very, very good. What they did. And I didn't really look at anything else they did except that thing, because that's what they were kind of known for.
Right. And those are the kind of people that you have to hire them for what they do. They're born specialists kind of thing. If you would take them out to a steel mill and say, okay, we need to get shots of like this steel spraying out of this place. It's like they're not the kind of guy to do that because they couldn't
Problem
technically
solve
pull
it.
it off.
Right.
Right.
I remember when Lindsay was born, we were doing a shoot for Amber Products, and we were working with a client, and you were just talking about some photographers might not know how to get out of trouble, and we were shooting tons of stainless, and you helped me through that because I remember thinking like I was doing some of it, but there were still some things that I didn't know how to do to get out of trouble. You know what I mean? So like that's the day that you really opened my eyes up to the shooting pool thing.
I know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know that, like here's your camera angle and you set up a light and you're having this glare, but you gave me that visual, if you shoot the pool ball at that, where's it going to bounce to?
Yeah. That sounds simple unless you haven't realized it yet.
I didn't realize it. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Until I did. And then,
Well, that's the way this business is in general. Like you have assumptions or you just haven't run across it. And then like, you don't know what all's involved, but that's almost the beauty of it's one of the beauties of the career is you're always coming up against new challenges. So it keeps it interesting.
that's right. I mean, and even though technology changes, like the principles are still the same. And I really like that, because I can constantly, like go back to that.
Yeah. Every day, not every day is different, but every day is different. You know what I mean? It's like, you might have a 3-day shoot, but,
Sure.
after that you're on to the next thing. And that's one of the things I love most about commercial photography is, it is different. You get thrown into all these different situations, and you're there for a day, maybe. That's a typical day shoot. So
Right.
you're at a plastics factory. Have you ever been in a plastics factory? No. Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's like, it's so cool. You're in a steel mill, and it's like you've seen pictures of steel flowing, but unless you're there, it's like you don't realize how awesome it is.
Sure.
I mean, it's just so great.
And sometimes at the end of the day, you realize that you don't want to do that for a living.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, figure, that the plastics factory is a great example. You do a plastics factory in the middle of summer and you will never want to go back because there's all these people in there and it's 120 degrees.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I've experienced that numerous times, and it makes me feel really grateful for what I do for a living because, I do have a creative mind. I've always kind of been wired that way, and I get bored easily. I think that's another thing. I don't get bored with the things I like, I guess, so maybe if I loved being a surgeon or whatever, that would be a creative thing for me and I would love it. But there's not many things I love to do. I mean, obviously I have these guitars on the walls and that's a big part of my life and music, but the creative outlet to do photography and to problem solve. I'm a people person, like you are too. I mean, you like people.
Yeah, not as much as you.
I know.
That's definitely a tactical advantage you have is you're like charismatic and I'm a loner.
I'm a goofball.
Well, I mean, there's the charisma part of it is not to be understated because, and it's another subject that I think is really interesting is you can be a really good photographer and be unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
To make it as a commercial photographer, you have to sell people. First of all, you have to sell them that you can do the job, and then you have to do the job, and then you sometimes have to schmooze with them afterwards.
Right.
And there's all that going into it, and it's part of it. And if you don't have the skills, people skills, you can very easily fall flat.
Yeah, I mean, I've often said, I have to be able to produce good images. But I know some photographers who are really hard to be around. And I think you can be a pretty solid photographer with a good attitude where people like to hang out with you for the day and do better than somebody who is a technical wizard and a complete jerk to be around. I've always thought that.
Yeah. You have to realize that it's about relationships. I mean, first of all, they have to trust that you can get the job done. But in reality, if there's 100 photographers in Pittsburgh, probably 50% of them could do exactly what you do. Not the same way,
Sure.
but they could come up with a successful conclusion to that project.
Sure.
So unless you can differentiate yourself in another way, then it's usually relationship wise. Like, especially if there's any travel involved, like people want to hang out with people they like.
Right.
And there'll be times when they'll hire a photographer that they don't like and they know they don't like him. And that guy is so good that there's only 3 people that can do this in Pittsburgh now. And he's one of the 3.
Right.
But, the most of the jobs in Pittsburgh or, probably anywhere in the world really,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're talking with the most elite, projects. It's about relationship. I mean, you got to be able to do the job, but you have to be able to, get along with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned even like riding in a car. How many times have we, even when I was assisting you years ago, but even myself, it's nothing to ride from here to Buffalo, New York or further with a client, to hang out in the same vehicle. And you have to be able to carry on a conversation and do that well.
Right. And I think you really excel at that. I don't know if you're quite the caliber, but you're almost the caliber where like there's a few people that are just extremely charismatic in Pittsburgh. Not in Pittsburgh, but in general. I'm thinking the guy I always think of is a guy that I worked with in Wilmington, Delaware. We'll call him Floyd.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Floyd, he was like, we went to school together, but he was probably like you. He was like 2-3 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks just like Pierce Brosnan. So like girls just ate him up, but he just oozes like confidence. He just like is so good at that. And that is amazing. That's an amazing quality to have as a photographer, because that's what gets you the jobs in the first place. And he's good enough to pull it off, but
Right.
he's the kind of guy that just like, you just like him. I don't
Yeah.
know what and you're the same way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Everybody's wired differently, and I I think I'm just myself. I mean,
Right. I mean, it's not something fake you do. It's
Sure.
just you.
sure.
Like there's another guy in town. We'll call him Jeff.
Yeah.
He's another one of those charismatic guys.
Sure.
And people just like him. And he's just, he's good looking. And that always is, major part of it, I think. Because
Sure.
there's not that many ugly, charismatic people, I don't think.
Sure.
But he's the same way. He just oozes, you just like him.
Yeah, you like to be around them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I know you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring up any names.
Yeah, it's cool. So yeah, I mean, so okay, so in the commercial world, we're talking about, the upside of it. What are some of the, we all have our favorite shoots and things like that. Is like, is there anything that that you like to go back to, that you're like, what, this is a shoot I could do every day? Or
Well, actually, to me, I don't know if I could answer that properly, because I guess there isn't one. But what I love about the career is it's different all the time. We kind of touched that. But I mean, I've been in operating rooms while they're doing open heart surgery. I've been in steel mills, plastic factories. I've been in coal mines with you too. And I've dangled from a helicopter, like the open door. They just take the door off and you're strapped in, but you're like shooting off the side. I mean, it's just different all the time. And that's what makes it so nice. I mean, I was a food photography specialist for a long time. And I have to admit, that's where I probably made the most money doing this. But I was probably the least happy, just because that variety aspect of it went away. And, maybe a future podcast, we can talk about, the differences between being a specialist and a generalist.
Sure.
But, I've gone, I kind of think you have to start out you have to start off as a generalist, and then, if you want to, you can become a specialist. But I'm happy, very happy being a generalist again, because I'm getting that variety back. I mean, I've even gone so far as to play with some other things. I mean, you actually got me into shooting drones, and that's like my new thing. It's like I love doing that, and it's just because it's new and it's exciting.
Right. And I mean, not to get too deep into it, but you even jumped into sound too.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, you and I were talking about getting, we keep getting calls. First of all, people should know that, like, you and I have studios right next to each other, right? So we share a lot of things. You always steal my equipment.
And put my yellow tape on it.
Put your yellow tape on it. If it doesn't have yellow tape on it, it's mine.
That's
I don't
right.
care if you just bought it yesterday, it's mine. But, you and I decided we're going to team up on doing some video stuff, because as a commercial photographer, and I don't want to like turn you off on this, but there's getting less and less calls for still photography and more calls for video.
Yep.
So we decided we'd combat that and we would get into video. So, I sort of bought the lighting and the sound, and you invested in these video cameras right here.
Sure.
But the thing is, I don't know shit about sound. So I had to learn. So I, got on YouTube and started learning about it. And then I figured I need some real life experience with it. So I started doing sound for the local film industry,
Right.
and that has been a lot of fun. But it's another thing that keeps it more interesting to me. And it's like, it's paying off. It's not just a side thing. I mean, this week coming up, I have a 3-day gig doing lighting and sound for a video crew.
Yep.
So, it pays off. And I just did, over the last probably 3 months, I probably did 15 days, if not more, of drone photography.
Right.
I'm getting, it's like, it's a great thing. Just, you're a generalist to the ultimate degree. I'm doing all kind of different things. And, there's some downside to that is you can't demand as much money if you're not a specialist. But life is so much more interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I like to photograph people. I mean, that's been some of my favorite things to do. Even when we set up like Billy's background and do headshots, I still have a good time with that.
Yeah,
even though it can be cookie cutterish. And that's, not to get too off the rails, but, in commercial photography, even things like that are still commercial photography, because you'll go to a place and you'll set up for 40 corporate headshots. You still have to interact the same way and still bring those commercial, aspects to it. And then you have these shoots where you have, a production team and you have stylists and all these things. And that's super cool. And some would even say kind of glamorous, we'll say. But those shoots, it takes a lot of mental energy to do that. And sometimes it's nice to do a shoot like 40 headshots where you're not so crazy, and
absolutely.
And I would say that to anybody listening, like that want to get into the commercial side, like there's so many levels of commercial. It doesn't have to be like, hey, I'm shooting for Sports Illustrated and, I'm going, down to Heinz Field and Justin Fields is who I'm photographing. You can get those shoots, but all this other stuff, so I'm having some thoughts now about some things. So, because we're talking to an audience. So like, if you're interested in commercial photography, take the smallest jobs. like if a company calls you and says, hey, would you photograph our Christmas party? And you're not really in with them and you think you could do big things with them, take it.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'll draw the line somewhere,
Right.
It's like, can you I don't like to do family portraits. I mean, I've done them, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but and I've, not that long ago, I mean, it was like I had a good client that was a hospital client. And like, basically the woman, one of the contacts there begged me to do her wedding. Now, I hadn't done weddings in like 20 years before that, if not that. And I agreed to do it. And I don't regret it. I mean, I had a good time.
Sure.
I probably wasn't as good as a wedding photographer that does it every weekend, but it was another variety thing. And you were talking about portraits. I like to do portraits.
Yep.
I mean, I like it because I tell the same stupid jokes to every person.
I know them.
I know, you know them.
I do.
And what's funny is like, there's this assistant of mine, we'll call her Kayla. Okay. She moved off to New York and she's running her own business there. But, a while back, she texted me and says, I hate to admit this, but I'm using all your jokes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and it's fun. I find it entertaining to myself. It's like dad jokes on steroids.
I use them. I use it doesn't suck all the time.
That's a
thing, but influenced us and we still use it to this day.
Yeah. He's a food stylist we work with. He was an ornery old coot and he was a blessing and a curse. I mean, I love him. Part of me loves him. Part of me hates him.
Yeah. I love him.
I know. I just, he's tough.
Yeah. But we had some great times.
Oh yeah, definitely. We had some bad times.
Yeah. But I wouldn't trade any of it.
No.
And that's the other thing about this industry and anybody who wants to get into this, you are going to meet some of the craziest characters of your life.
Yeah. There are so many weird people that weird equals creative in a way. So if you're looking to work with creative people, you're going to be working with some weirdos, and that's great. I mean, it keeps life interesting.
Yeah.
I still remember, like, I mean, I don't consider myself a homophobe, but it's like there are so many gay people in this industry. But I remember this one guy that was the talent group downstairs of our building. He was this flamboyant gay guy. And I used to just go down and talk to him because he just made me smile. Like I would go down and talk to him and he was like, he was just so like over the top. And it was great. I loved the guy.
Well, he had a good energy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I know what you mean. And that's what I love people and I like being around all kinds of people. And a lot of times I take some great things away from it too, that maybe I was having an off day and they changed my perspective, so, but yeah, you do meet some crazy characters in this business. And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. Go ahead.
I just have a little list here in front of me, and I was looking at some of the other things that make me like photography,
Sure.
commercial photography. And one of the ones that's so great is because of all the variety, you don't have a permanent boss. Your boss is different on each project.
Yeah.
And that's a blessing and a curse, but because sometimes, you do have to work with schmucks. But you're only working for a schmuck for a day. But most of the time, you're just working with this guy, and he's great. This guy's great. This guy's great. And it's just a variety of people. Keeps life interesting. But every once in a while, you have to work with a schmuck. But it's only for a day. You can put up with anybody for a day.
Sure. And it's sometimes it can be a test of patience, you know. But
we're both thinking about the same guy.
Yeah, but what's funny is like in my career, I haven't run into many like that. Like I genuinely like the people I've worked with,
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's even, okay, we both worked with this guy, and we're just going to call him Mark, okay? With a C.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at first, this guy really rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, it took 3 times for us being introduced for him to remember my name.
Sure.
And it's like, he probably is a genius. And he was just doing it
On
like
purpose.
as a game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I really disliked this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, over time, I've really grown to like him.
Sure.
I mean, it's like, it's a quirk. It's a quirk of his. We all have quirks, but he's like this. He just, he likes you to know that he's a genius, for one thing.
And he likes when you let him know that you think he's
But I mean, it was bad at first, but it got to be almost entertaining to myself. It's like, I just emailed the guy the other day. I haven't worked with, he's moved out of town. He's retired, but I just emailed him the other day, and it's like, hey man, how's it going? It's like, now I kind of miss him.
Did he write you back?
He did.
Oh, good.
It took him a couple of days. It wasn't an email. It was a LinkedIn message. So it took him a couple of days to hit it.
Yeah. He was a fun one to be around. We have some crazy stories about him.
Oh yeah. That was.
But if we said
what was that girl's name?
Cassie.
Cassie. Okay.
Yeah, Cassie.
We'll share that some other time.
We're giving it away. Yeah. But yeah, there's been numerous ones, and all right. So, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go down my list here a little bit. You get to travel.
Sure.
That's traveling can be a curse sometimes, but if you don't do it very often, it's kind of novel and it's fun.
Yeah.
The time we went to Arizona,
That was great.
and Utah, and we got to meet. What was the guy's name out in the middle of the desert that his car broke down?
I don't remember his name.
Was it Michael?
I could have been.
I don't know. You tell the story.
Well, I was so wrapped up, like that was a shoot for Draeger, and we had 2 parts of that. I had to get a shot of Monument Valley right around where Forrest Gump said, "I think I'll go home now," and he turned around, and went home. And we had 3 days to get that shot, and we got it the first morning. And that morning, it was beautiful, and we were there 4 in the morning, something like that, and set up. It was.
Did we scout that the day before?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah. Because we got in. That was such a whirlwind, because I remember we left really early in the morning. It was still dark, but yeah, we did scout it, and as we were getting ready to shoot, there was a car that was breaking down right by us, and
it was still dark when that car, and we didn't know what it was. We thought they might have been after us or something. It's like, it was danger.
You're in the desert by yourself,
right?
But it was a family that was in trouble, and we ended up helping them. And I think you drove them back, right?
No, I think we both did. It was a Navajo family, right?
It was, yeah.
And what struck me funny is we were driving this guy back to his brother's house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because they had like 2 lug nuts that were connected and the rest were broken off, and he was afraid to drive home. And so he gets in the back of the car, and we're driving him, and I remember him, and it's like, you're in the middle of nowhere. Okay, there's like 2 trailers about 200 yards, no, like 1,000 yards that way. You see a little white dot, and you realize somebody's trying to eke out a living there. And this guy, he was saying, he goes, "Oh, I remember back when I was a kid, nothing was out here." And we look at each other. It's like, there's still nothing out here.
Right.
But that, you get to do fun stuff like that. I mean, I had a shoot several times in Puerto Rico doing food stuff.
Yep.
And, that's kind of fun. You go out there for a few days.
Sure. And you get to know these people around the world. That's what's interesting too, is if I didn't do this, I mean, maybe another job, especially now since business is done all over the world and you have Zoom calls, so you get to know people around the world. But like back then, like my world was kind of smaller. It just was before the internet and all of that. I mean, I knew people locally and I didn't get out much. I mean, gosh, I didn't see the ocean till I was 21 years old, so, but yeah, I've made some great friends around the world and got to see some things, and that's been exciting. I think the older I get, though, and I'm not trying to make myself sound old, but I don't have the desire to travel as much as I used to. And I don't know if COVID changed that, because, everybody kind of, everybody had a home office after that, and Zoom stock went through the roof, but I still like to get out, and, if I have a chance to travel here and there, I think, well, we're traveling to Ohio, I think next week, sometime this month.
Yeah. I don't think a commercial photographer will travel like they used to, just because, I mean, this is like pre-internet, but
yeah.
What would happen is if you're an art director for a company and you had a shoot in LA, like you didn't know the photographers out in LA, you knew the photographers here, so you'd fly them out to LA.
Right.
Now you jump on the internet and you find out who's good in LA, so you eliminated all that. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of cost that they don't have to spend.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, unless it's such a very specialty thing that you've worked on a series. I mean, I've run into this where I'm doing a series of portraits that has to be a certain way, and they'll send you out,
Right.
So those types of things. But the general call to do something in another state, it doesn't happen as much as it used to. And I do think COVID had a lot to do with that,
Another cool thing about being a commercial photographer is like you get to meet some interesting people, not just interesting, but like semi-stars or even stars, movie stars, sports figures, celebrities. Just the other day, I got to do a selfie with the star of my very favorite movie.
Yes.
And my favorite movie is Groundhog Day. And I just got to photograph Punxsutawney Phil.
Yeah.
It was for like Ace. No, it wasn't.
What?
It's a secret. They haven't released that yet.
Oh.
But anyways, I photographed Punxsutawney Phil.
Yes.
And it was just a lot of fun, and I photographed a bunch of Steelers over the years, Mr. Rogers when he was around, and, I've met the CEOs of major corporations, and, it's kind of fun. It's just something a little novel. You can name drop that to your kids and they're impressed,
Right. I remember one time I hid behind a dumpster to photograph Cher. And I got the shot and it made front page.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. That's kind of shameful.
Yeah. She was very nice to me.
Was she?
Yeah, she really was. Yeah. That was in the Valley News Dispatch days.
That was a few years ago, huh?
It was a little bit ago. Yeah. All right. What else is on your list?
Let's see. You know what? There's a certain amount of pride. Like you just kind of illustrated it. It's like you got to photograph Cher, and it was on the cover of this. I mean, I remember one time I was going to work, which is like a 13-mile drive, and I had 4 billboards on the way that were mine. I mean, there's certain cool things like that. And I remember back in my soccer days, when my daughter was 6 years old, and we photographed her, you and I photographed her for Huggies, those little fruit drinks that you get, And I remember after that job was published, it was for the case. You bought 24 Huggies and it came in this case, and there's a picture of my daughter on the top of it. And I remember going to Giant Eagle to check out because it was my week to bring Huggies or some kind of snacks and drinks to the game. And there I am with this Huggy box, and my daughter on the box is kicking this soccer ball.
Yep.
Well, right beside me in the checkout line of Giant Eagle, there's my daughter in her soccer outfit, her hair back, same way it was in this. And I go to I said to the woman at the checkout, I said, hey, check this out. This is her. And like,
yeah, right.
she couldn't care less.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like one of those
Yeah.
things. But I mean, there's a certain amount of pride. I mean, I've had shots in Bon Appetit, like I probably had 13 Pittsburgh magazine covers over the year. I mean, it's just, there's a certain amount of pride in commercial photography that I don't think you get with other types of photography. Now, our friend Jeff,
Yep.
he will argue just the opposite. He'll argue that, like, he's a senior portrait photographer, and he'll say, as long as I've been around, like, no one, like, you do a great job in commercial photography, no one really cares. It's like no one seems like they care. It's like you never get a big thank you.
Right.
It's like you'll never get oh man, that's so great, that's so great. But he's had mothers cry, so I don't know.
You're talking about our friend Mr. Camella.
Yes. So that's, commercial photography is great. I would strongly recommend it to anybody that thinks they are self-motivated enough to do it. I would say you don't even have to be that creative. I think that you can develop that. I think you need to be naturally curious and willing to learn new things, because things are always changing. You gotta learn Photoshop. You gotta learn, Chat GBT now. You
Right.
have to learn how to market yourself. I mean, that's a huge thing. So there's a ton of ups and downs to this whole thing. But as far as a career, in hindsight, I would not change it for anything. I mean, I remember, and like I said earlier, you don't have to be a brainiac to be a photographer, right?
Right.
So I remember just recently, I was in this shoot, and I was actually doing lighting, okay, for this video shoot. And I'm in this room, and they were doing a shot of all these people having a mock meeting, and there's a guy running around doing B-roll video, right? And I remember these are all engineers at this high-end software company. And I'm looking around, there's like 30 people, and I'm thinking to myself, I probably have the lowest IQ in this room.
Yeah, right.
And I'm probably the happiest.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
the money's decent. I made some good money over the years.
That's okay.
And I am, I think it was a great choice. And, I still think there's a lot of good things to be done here. I think if you wanted to be a photographer, then you can make it happen.
Absolutely.
Things that I think is interesting about this, and it might be worth talking about, is like getting in the zone. Like, there's not that many things I don't think an engineer gets in the zone.
No.
But I get in the zone.
Sure. So do I.
So I think that's a big thing.
The zone doesn't start till you start, in a way. Like, sometimes on the way to the shoot, or even when I get to the shoot, I'm not necessarily in the zone.
Oh, definitely.
You're setting up, you have this, you have all of these items in your head, all of our gear, our cases, and maybe you're working with an assistant, and maybe the assistant's new, and, you're trying to navigate that whole thing. But you were talking about the zone, being in the zone. I can relate to that. And I think a lot of commercial photographers who are established and they've done it, they know the zone as well. And the zone to me isn't something that you seek. The zone is something that you find yourself in.
Yeah, it just happens.
Yeah. And generally for me, like, okay, let's talk about just a portrait, a headshot. The first 10 are usually junk. Maybe.
Hopefully not, but
Yeah.
okay.
But I mean, like, and I'm not talking about like our technique to get it. It's the person you're
Are
pointing
you talking about the shot, not the first 10 portraits, but the
Yes.
first 10 shots of a portrait?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I can go with that.
And then you start to get in the zone with them and you're feeding off of each other and to me, that's a zone. On the bigger shoots, you're really in a zone. And I think one shoot to bring up where I think we had to be in a zone, you had to be, it was your shoot, was the MSA shoot. And I think we were in crazy zones because we had so many things going on.
Yeah, I'm not a good multitasker, and usually my idea of the zone is like if I'm in the zone, I can step back and say, okay, what's going on here? But you don't, like you said, you're in it, you know? And basically, if you don't understand what that is, it's like you're running on not memory, but you're on automatic. Okay.
Instinct.
Your brain is calculating problems and solutions. Okay. This is wrong. Let's fix it. This is wrong. Let's fix it. What's going to fix it? If I move the light over here, is it up too high? Is it down too low? Is it, do I need a little bit less depth of field? Or, it's like you get all these questions just going on in your head, and you're like walking around and you're moving a light at the same time. You're thinking about the focus, and it's just like you're on automatic, and it's just happening. And it's so cool. I mean, it must be like what Michael Jordan's going through. Like, okay, should I go this way or should I go this way? And you don't think, it just happens. You don't make a decision ever. You don't ever make a decision. You're just on automatic, and it makes its own decision.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a painter with a blank canvas,
Yeah.
And some of the greatest paintings ever started blank, and a lot of their instincts start taking over. I mean, they might have a general idea of what they want, but
you have to be a master of your craft, because you're using that tool to create what you're thinking about. And if you don't know how to get there, then your body can't automatically do it.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see a painting. I mean, that's you don't say, okay, I'm going to add a little bit of curve right there, or a little bit of more paint or whatever. It's like, it just happens, and it's like, yeah, that's working. Let's do some more of that. Or,
Sure.
I just love that about what we do. I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest things, is being in the zone. I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it is, it is a high, when you're in that zone, and especially when things are working. And if the client likes what you're doing, that makes the zone even that more fantastic. Like, I've been in the zone of things, and maybe the client wants something different, and I'm like, that photographically sucks.
Oh yeah.
And they kill my zone.
We're going to have to wait to talk about the downsides of, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah. That's a buzz kill. That's a zone killer.
Or when the client says, come on, we need to go to the next shot, and you're in the zone making this shot better, and I know I can make it really, really good, and they just don't care.
Yeah.
They just, okay, we got 10 more shots to do. Let's
it's
go.
that quantity
Versus
quality thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and then you have to make the decision on, do I die on this hill or not? And then you start, you're getting close to the wall of like, am I damaging relationship?
Yeah, obviously, because like you said, it's like, and sometimes, and this is like a whole different subject, but like there's all kind of different clients out there. And to me, the best clients will point you in a direction and shove you, and then you give them your best possible shot. Some people will try to micromanage you. And some people, like you said, like I have certain clients, I can think of one right now, that wouldn't know a good photo if it smacked him in the face. You know what I mean? It's like his idea of photography is, I need a photo for that spot, okay? And it has to be of this. But as far as creating a great photo, he couldn't care less.
So it's a guy.
Yeah. He couldn't care less. And we'll call him, no, we're not going to call him anything. Because you know what? And like we talked about earlier, is that guy is paying me, okay? And I like him as a person. I really like him. But I just realized that I am not walking away with any portfolio pieces, which is a big motivator in this, I'm not walking away with any portfolio pieces, but I'm going to get a nice check. And sometimes that's enough, because he's going to be gone tomorrow, and I need those checks.
Like Steve Miller said, take the money and run.
Oh yeah. And that's okay too. It's like you said, it's like you have different bosses all the time. And if he's not the greatest boss, he's not the worst boss. You know what I mean? It's like, I enjoy being with him, and I understand what he wants, and I'm going to give it to him. And like, I'll do the best I can under the limitations.
Right. And that can be a zone killer.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but it was on my mind. What do you do? Because everybody has off days. What do you do when you're having trouble finding the zone? I've had those days.
Um, I don't. Like it's like once I start, I've never had a trouble being in it unless I'm totally distracted all the time by the client. You know, if
Right.
he keeps pulling me out of that, then I can't jump in it. But
Right.
most of the time, just the challenge of that shot just sucks me in. And like, you know, I have better days than everybody does, but
Sure.
I've never really had trouble hitting that zone.
That's good.
I
There's been a couple times that I can recall that I I was I just knew I wasn't in it. And I don't know what it was. It could have been personal. It could have
Yeah,
been like I had something serious going on or my health or whatever was
Right.
going on. But well, that's good that you don't have many of those days.
yeah, I can't remember one.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky like that. And what's bizarre is you talk about commercial photography, and everybody thinks you have to be so creative, and it's like I never was a creative person. I just but I like doing this. You know, to me, it's just a challenge you have to fix.
Sure.
And I've always been a person that's just been obsessed. Once I get something that I'm interested in, I'm just obsessed with it. And, you know, that puts me in the zone. I mean, I get in the zone over, you know, flying my drone. You know, it's like, it's just so much fun,
Yeah.
you know? And I get in the zone when I'm making a website. You know, it's like, you just kind of like, okay, what can I do? You know, and I just, you know.
I mean, we've been obsessed over something simple as cases.
Oh, I'm addicted. I'm
Yeah.
addicted. I just fessed up to my case addiction to my son-in-law the other day.
Oh, Thanksgiving talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I am definitely addicted.
Yeah. 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 I have a good bit of cases, whether it be photography, music related, whatever. It's like, you have to have a nice case.
Yeah. I bought the new, it's not new, but the Airweight, you know, the Pelican that just fits in the overhead, but it's the real light one. I just bought that for the drones.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd stand on it, but it's awesome.
We should do a video just on that.
I don't
How much you love that case and everything that goes in it. Lord knows there's enough videos of that sort of thing out there.
Yeah.
I like the zone thing. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. And I worry that people are going to look at this video and think, oh man, I don't think I can do that. But I didn't think I could do that. You know what I mean? Like I had no idea what the zone was until I got into it. It's like, I didn't know I was interested in marketing until I got into this. I didn't know that, you know, I always thought about photography as, I hope I can go my entire career without dropping my camera. That was like my big concern back then. And like, I just love this career. And, you know, it may not be for you, you know,
Right.
It may not be, but you know, if you like solving problems and if you just like solving problems, and I'm a loner, so I'm a, you know, introvert. So I don't have to be a real outgoing person to do well in this, you know,
Right.
I have to be somewhat social, but,
Right.
so yeah, there are a lot of characteristics that you need to be successful at this, but, it's a great career. And I honest to God, if I could be this or a high priced attorney, I would be this. If I could be this or a brain surgeon, I'd be this.
Sure.
I mean, I just love what I do, and I would, you know, highly recommend it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you know, I thought that I was going to be a photojournalist, you know, but that's not what happened, you know, and the people that are watching this will have their own story, you know, of where they end up in photography if they pursue it. And that's where, you know, passion, it drives you. If you have a passion for something, it drives you. I would recommend, though, that people not get into it for money. And what I mean is, like, if you put money before passion, I think that's a problem.
And the highest end on photography, unless you're one of the really elite, isn't all that high.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, things go well, you know, you can make a couple $100K,
Yeah.
but you know, that's like on the top of it,
Right.
you know, unless, I mean, they're big elites, high elites, but you know, I don't consider myself a high elite.
Sure.
I consider myself a success, you know,
Sure.
but they're much more, you know.
And then that gets into whole, what do you define as success? You know,
Right.
you know, for me, I live, I think, a fairly modest life, you know, and I try to work hard, and, you know, I'm happy with my life. And, you know, could I have maybe gone to New York? I remember when my cousin Eddie Adams said, "Hey, why don't you know come to New York?" And I was young, you know, and I just didn't want that life. I just didn't want to do that, you know. But and I landed okay, you know. But again, I thought what I thought was going to happen didn't happen, and then it wasn't until I was introduced to commercial photography, and I guess that's the other thing too, maybe to bring up, like, so how would somebody get into it? How would somebody learn about it?
That's a whole nother podcast.
It is, but I'll quickly say, go assist somebody.
Yeah, that's a good way.
One or two good people, research them and assist, because that was super helpful. I mean, for me, you know, going to the Art Institute, I knew enough to maybe be dangerous, and I did not know how to get out of trouble. That's for sure. And, you know, when you assist too, you're not just learning about the cool lights and cameras and where to put lights and things. You're learning how to deal with clients. Like, you learn the depth of knowledge that you get by assisting for a year or two. I mean, really, you can start a business by doing that. Yeah. And I would recommend that too.
I often told people that if they're interested, it's better to freelance assist. That way you get to experience multiple photographers, you know, because,
Right.
you know, one guy might have a better way of doing it than another. And like, as a photographer, I never see the way he does it. You know,
Right.
it might be so much better than the way I do it,
Right.
but I never see that. Whereas if you're an assistant, you can just kind of like stash that away. It's like, hey, if I ever run across that, that's how I'm going to do it.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, I mean, that's the best way, I think.
I agree. I mean, again, it was super helpful to me, and that's what I would recommend. I wouldn't recommend becoming everybody in town's assistant.
I don't think that's a possibility, but I would say if you pick like the top 3 or 4 people,
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
And you might want to even specialize or not specialize, go to different people, you know, like if you would go to, like, say somebody does food, you know, go in and see what food's like, you know.
Sure.
Or if you want to go into a portrait person, go into a portrait person, you know. So